So it has come to this. Alright, this is DJ Mega 817. I'm back with another video. And today I'm going to be doing a video on something I've been wanting to do for some time now. Especially since I would say like a few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago now. Obviously, if you're looking at the title, this is going to be a Bleach discussion. And of course, this is on the topic of, about the series ending soon, the arc, and the next week's gonna be the last chapter. So this is what I'm gonna do. Because I'm gonna share this thing, and then when I finish with that, we're gonna get down to the nitty gritty. So before I get into that, I might as well explain why I decided to do this. Now, I mentioned, I think in my last live stream I was gonna do this, and I mentioned this in a few of my live reactions to Bleach. The reason why it took me so long now, maybe it's just because I was lazy. That's really the main reason. There's no real elaborate reason beyond that. I guess also I just wanted to just kind of ride it out to see how things would play out before I would video. But now seeing how things are playing out, I decided this is the best time to do it. Hold on. Alright then, we're back. I will turn the thing back on when I get down to the nitty gritty of things. So right now I'm just gonna share this thing. So yeah, I wanted to write this thing out before I actually did this video, but I think I'm waiting long enough because the final battle is over now. It's done. We're done. The next chapter is going to be the last chapter. It's going to be in color, and it's probably going to be a long chapter, kind of like how Naruto's last chapter was. So, how do I feel about this whole situation? Well, I don't really like it, honestly. But okay, before I go any further, let me just go into my feelings on this week's chapter. This chapter has created some controversy. I thought it was an okay chapter, to be honest. I know a lot of people hated this chapter, but I thought it was okay. Like, was it great? There was nothing great about this chapter. But at the same time, I feel like this chapter is as decent as it's going to be. So there's not really much you can really say about it, honestly. You're either gonna love this chapter or you're gonna hate it. Well, actually, no one's really gonna like this chapter, but it is what it is. Now, the reason why I don't hate this chapter is because I probably should turn the camera on now so I know this thing is still on recording. Alright, there you go. The reason why I don't hate this chapter is because I didn't think it was like I said, I didn't think it was terrible. I think it's the big issue a lot of people have with this chapter is, of course, the way Block got defeated. Now, would I have liked for him to be defeated in a more plausible manner? Yes. So at the same time, there really wasn't much you can do with it. You only got one chapter left. Like, I feel like his defeat was actually decent. Not great, just decent. Because the arrow actually played a part. It actually hit him. Ichigo actually took advantage of the situation. That to me is the most decent win you're gonna get with Ichigo being the one to defeat him. Now, personally, I would have rather had either all the war potentials get together to fight Bach, along with Uryu and maybe Isshin and Ryukin, or have Aizen be the one to defeat him, or even have But those are the ones I would do it as far as like Drew Harbach get defeated. The other option I would have been actually Drew Harbach winning, but we know that's not happening. So, oh, I think it would have been interesting if that happened. Plus, it would have made, I think, more for a better transitioning point for it, maybe like some type of continuation, like some type of sequel, spin-off or something. And I still say that Bleach needs that for sure. Because there's way too many unresolved plot points that need to be addressed. But not just that, there's a lot of unresolved characters that need to be addressed or need to be fully like evolved and developed, whatever. And those are just some of the things we're going to be getting into in this video. But on the topic of what this video is titled. Oh yeah, before I go into that, I should probably address something else. Now, the whole arrow thing itself, whether that is an asshole. I don't think it's an asshole. I think it was foreshadowed. I know Tekken, he recently did a chapter review and he was saying it wasn't foreshadowed. I think Healer was kind of saying that too, but it was. I mean, yes, the surgery thing, I think that was foreshadowing. And Tekken even brought up a scene that I completely forgot about with Soken. I still don't remember it. But yes, I do think that whole autopsy that Ryuko was doing on Ryu's mother, Kagiri, I think that was some type of foreshadowing. Was it good foreshadowing? No, it wasn't. It was rushed, but I think there was foreshadowing to it. Here's how I see it. I think it's basically like a similar issue to like the Toshiro Bankai evolving thing and Tsukushima's powers. All three of these things look like assholes, but they're not really assholes. They actually make sense in the context of their abilities. The big problem with all three of them, they actually have multiple problems. But the first one is the build-up. The build-up for them was not. Well, there is some build-up, but it's only like very slight build-up, and it's very vague. Second problem is that it took way too long to get to do resolution to those things. The third thing is that when it did happen, it happened in the most convenient time, so it made it feel like an asshole, despite the fact that it really wasn't one. It was just very convenient. And the fourth is that it was in the expense of certain characters. Like the Fullbringers, they were set up to be doing something, and all they get, have Tsukushima use his powers to like fix Ichigo's Bankai, or Chishiro's Bankai, saying how he fully mastered over the time but we don't even get to see until the battle with the Miracle, which is way later. Not only is it like full arc in, it's like several fights into this arc. Actually, not even that. It's the last fight Toshiro has in this arc that we finally get to see his fully matured Bankai, despite the fact that it was already mentioned that he'd actually achieved this, earlier in the time skip or something like that. And again, it happened the most convenient time, so it feels like an asshole. The only thing I agree with that people complain about being an asshole is the Kenpachi thing. And the funny thing is, I've heard less people complain about that one, despite that one actually makes no sense. And I know people try to defend it with the whole Yachiro touching Kenpachi's sword thing, and you could say maybe that was foreshadowing, but there's holes in that one. At least with the Toshiro Bankai, even though Shalong said that his Bankai what did they say about it? Like it breaks, like when the petals run out, his Bankai runs out. Toshiro never confirmed that. We just assume so. But still, like I said, that's still not getting Kubo off the hook though, because he presented it poorly because he never expanded upon it until recently. That is a problem. And Kubo does this. And Kubo has been doing it. He does this a few times in the series, but he will actually set something up in the series don't address it for a long period of time. Actually, Jolton actually mentioned this in one of like in the first season of his no, it wasn't J. It was the Otaku Battle Zone live streams. But he had mentioned that what Kubo does is that he sets something up, leaves it alone for years, and then brings it back up. And unfortunately, he's gotten much worse when it comes to this. Before he used to at least handle it decently. Now he's using it. He'll do that and then bring it back up in the most convenient time, so it makes it feel like an asshole. But it's actually something that was set up years ago, but you just forgot about it because Kubo never expanded on it. Which makes me wonder if Kubo himself actually forgot about it. And yes, I do think Kubo forgets about some of his own plot points. I really do. So, that's just something I kind of wanted to address. This with this chapter in Slash, I like him being defeated like that. Like I really, it's one of those things where I don't really see how else it could have went down. Honestly, I really don't. Not like a donate, but it's one of those take the good with the bad type of things. So there's not much I can say about that. All right, so we're gonna get into the main point of things now. Why I think this arc is the worst arc of Bleach. Which is funny because I started off this thing with actually defending it, but yes, now I'm gonna kind of bash this thing. Now, there was a point in time where I thought this arc could have been the best arc of Bleach, or at least the second best arc of Bleach. At least after Soul Society, but unfortunately that never happened. One other thing I should mention too is that this arc is obviously getting rushed. It's obviously getting cut short because this arc was supposed to be longer, the longest arc of Bleach, which means it's supposed to be longer than the entire Ranka saga. And that saga was said to be somewhere between like 245 and 250 chapters long. I'm not sure if that's also counted to turn back the pendulum chapters, but if not, then that means that this arc might also be a little over. That saga might have been over 300 chapters, which would mean that in order to surpass the length of the run, somewhere between 251 to 310 chapters, but it's not. We're 684, and next week's gonna be 685. Although if you do count the turn back to pendulums, it'll technically be chapter 700, but I'm not gonna get into that. But basically, chapter 680 was the I guess chapter 680, aka chapter 695. That was the 200th mark of this arc because this arc started at chapter 480. And after 680, it was announced that there's going to be 5 chapters left, and sure enough, there is. I know there's been some debate that was wrong information, but it's basically been proven at this point that was the right information. That this arc is indeed ending in 5 chapters after chapter 680, with next week's chapter 685 being the final chapter. So yeah, this arc obviously got cut short. It even surpassed the length of the Ranka saga. Alright, so how I feel about this arc. As I said, I think this arc started off decently. I really did. I think it had a decent start. It started off a little slow, but then it started picking up when we when Yamamoto's vice captain got killed off. And then from that point forward, it started getting really good when Ichigo went to Wake Mundo, and then you had the invasion. And the first invasion, at least in my personal opinion, I think it's easily the best part of this arc by far. That part was awesome. It was lit. It was great. There was a lot more context within these content in those chapters. There's stuff happening. You got to see how savage the Vonderite were. And it was interesting enough is that even though the Soul Side lost that, there was revenge fights being set up. which means you had major fights that was going to be set up for each of the characters to, go ham. And what was also cool is that there was a lot of Stern Raiders, which means that there was going to be a lot of characters that would get fight. Then this is where the problems come in. I'll get to that. Yes, one of the major problems with this arc. I could complain about that the arc is too long, but at the same time it's not. It just feels long, which I guess was the first problem. Obviously now it's going too fast. There was a point in time it's going really slow. That was generally during the second invasion. I think it's where things started going downhill for real. Although there was a few hiccups here and there in between the first and second invasion, like Unahana's death. And yes, I think Unahana's death was completely unwarranted. It shouldn't have happened. Well, not to say it shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have happened the way it did. But we'll get into that later. Like just a lot of stuff I want to talk about. I don't even know where to start here, honestly. Probably should have had a booklet. So I guess I'll themselves. Yes, the main villains of the arc. So you have the main villain, who's the leader of the group of the organization, and his name is Juhabak, also known as Yuha or Yahweh, whatever you want to call him. He's pretty decent. Now, like I know a lot of people felt he went downhill when he gained the Almighty. I can understand that. I will even admit that he kind of devolved to a mustache twirler. I will fully admit that he devolved into a mustache twirler with an Eisen complex. Because he has the whole, like, he thinks he's a god, and he didn't want to be honest, and he has the whole trolling thing. So there's not much you can do about that. But me personally, I enjoy this character from beginning to end. But I do feel that some of the intrigue of his character they kind of go down the toilet because when he was introduced as this character who didn't really like fighting, but did it because it was necessary for him. To move forward with his plans as well as what else? And I remember him saying that he needed like he needed to fight and he needed people to die so he can keep living or stay in life or something like that. I don't remember exactly because that hasn't really been brought up since Drew Harbach went up to the Soul Palace. What happened with Drew Harbach exactly? The thing with Drew Harbach is, like I said, he devolved into a mustache twirler and with the Eisen complex. But the other problem is that he became so OP that there was really no way you can actually beat him in a legitimate way. And the very few characters who actually did have the tools to beat him got defeated. Think about it, Ichibe. He has the power to name and remove names from things. Got defeated. Because Box somehow he revived. Although it was explained in this recent chapter that he can change the future to a point where he could even change the futures in which he dies. So I'm going to assume that's how he did it. Yeah, because I think he looked into the future. Because Juha Bach was dying in that fight. He looked into the future and then changed it. I think he stole some of Ichibe's powers to revive himself, and then he destroyed Ichibe. And I've heard some people hate on that fight because the victor was already decided before the fight even started. But despite that, it was still a good fight. I would say it's one of the best fights in the arc, honestly. In fact, it was like the second to last good fight that's happened in this arc. The last good fight that happened in this arc, in my opinion, was the Pernita fight. Actually, let me scratch it. The best fights in this arc was the Yamamoto versus Royd and Juha. Shushi versus Robert. Versus Matthew Masculin. Komor versus Bambietta, round 2. Juha versus Ichibe. Mayuri, the Giselle fight. The zombie chicks fight. Gigi, Giselle, whatever you want to call her, or him, because the person's supposed to be a trap. That fight, the Pernita fight, and parts of the Askin fight. Those were the best fights in this arc, and that's like a little less than 10 fights. That's like 8 or 9 fights that I just named. Now, that's what I think were the best fights in this arc. The other fights, not so much. Yes, I thought the Ichibei fight was actually pretty good. Yes, I would like to have seen have that intrigue with Bach not wanting to fight, not liking to fight, not liking violence, all that stuff be explored more. Unfortunately, got thrown out the window when he was doing the Soul King, but what can you do? All right, so the other Stern Raiders. I will agree that Hashford was kind of a disappointment as well because he was built up to be the main secondary villain of this arc. And first off, he didn't get enough screen time like he should have, and like he was kind of someone in the block in the sense that he didn't really like to fight. Very calm and collective and did things in a very intellectual manner. But unfortunately, when the battle with him and Uyu started, he kind of devolved. This basically started when he absorbed the when him and Bach switched powers, and this was the point when Bach already absorbed the Soul King. At least most of the Soul King, assuming there are legs out there. But if there are legs of the Soul King out there, we're probably not going to see it now because he's defeated. So, and plus there'll be no reason to show it at this point. So you have that issue. Like the thing with Asphalt, I definitely agree with people where he got the way he got defeated was just disappointing because the thing with him is that he just got taken out like like a punk. How do you get taken out, you ask? You gotta take Drew Harbach uses Ash Forward thing on him, and I also agree with tagging that the whole Ash Forward thing itself is very inconsistent. Because we've seen it just steal people's powers, we've seen it completely obliterate people, and even like the obliterating part is inconsistent. We've seen it like rip off their skin. No, actually that was a little more consistent because both Robert and the Miracle of the Skeletons. But on the other hand, like I said, we've seen people get hit directly with their powers. There's no consistency there. I said that he can do the characters. So if he wants to completely obliterate them, he will. If he just wants to just give their powers, then he'll do that. If he wants to severely injure them with it, he'll do that. As to why he didn't steal Uyu's powers in the process, he didn't feel like it. Yes, plot convenience is convenient. No, actually, that's wrong. I mean, obviously, there you go. As if, but then again, it didn't really matter. It didn't make a little difference anyway because Uyu didn't even use the antithesis against Bach anyway. Then again, like that's not like it was done any good against him. Yes, it was stated that his antithesis, the power that could actually one of the powers that could actually counter Bach's. But then Bach still had one. Which means if Uyu did try to use it against him, he could just use the balance on him, which is Uyu's counter, which we've seen, in their fight. But I'm glad Uyu at least got to do something, even though it was shooting a plot device arrow, but what can you do? But yes, I am disappointed with the way Hashwell went out. But I'm still more disappointed with the Miracle thing, only because we spent more chapters on that. And considering there was more characters involved in the Miracle fight, and the fact, like the big issue I have with that fight is that all the chapters that were dedicated to that fight is basically pointless and null void now. That to me is way more annoying and insulting than Bach than Hasbro getting defeated the way he did. But one thing I will say that I am disappointed with, I'm surprised no one's actually brought up as far as like revolving around this situation. is the fact that Hashball, not really Hashball, Udiu didn't really get a good final fight. Because people are complaining about Hashball not getting like a proper final. Udiu did not get a proper final fight. That's that is way more disappointing than anything else. I'm just saying he didn't get a final fight at all. He just got taken out and that was it. No, Udiu got his ass beat for most of the fight, trying to do this, you know, trying to do this plan of his, of trying to take enough damage so he can reverse it, only to find out, oh wait, his power is also the reverse thing. So then it was just basically like a ping pong match, as King Lightning Legends describe it as. I think I've also heard Tekken describe it as that too. The funny thing, that battle kind of reminded me of that one Yu-Gi-Oh battle against I think it was a Bandit Keith back in the. It was at the beginning of the whatchamacallit, the Battle City tournament arc when Bandit Keith was being mind controlled by Merrick and Keith. They were throwing a bunch of magic and trap cards reflecting as one blast from each other. And that's what that battle reminded me of. Reflect, 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 reflect plus one. That's basically how it went. It was like it was just a battle of reflect until either one of them ran out of it or one of them had like an upgraded version of it, like reflect plus one. That's how that battle played out. It was stupid. And then Uyo got bodied, and then Hashwell got taken out by Buck, and then and then and then Hashwell using his powers to take the misfortune from Uyu to himself, and then he dies. That's disappointing. But more so for Uyu because like there's a lot of problems with this. It's not even just the fact that it's supposed to be Uyu's like arc, and this is going to be Uyu's final fight. It's also because of the fact that Uyu, in all honesty, hasn't really had a good fight in a very long time. Let's be honest here, he hasn't. The last, the last like good to decent fight Uyu was in that he actually won was against the preload inspired Karuchi back in the Wakamundo invasion. Yes, that far along. Because after that, he lost to Zio. He lost to who did he lose to? He lost to Ukiura because he tried to defend Orihime against Ukiura, and that failed. He lost to the Fullbringers like twice, and he didn't even get to participate in the final fight with the Fullbringers either, which was disappointing. Despite the fact he was still on the battlefield and conscious, and was still able to stand up. He didn't even get to fight anybody. Which, personally, I think he should have fought Tsukishima instead of Byakuya, but whatever. It was disappointing, and this arc would have been like you kind of redeemed because of how far he's fallen. He never really got that chance. I mean, sure, he got more powerful with the whole antithesis thing. He went from like top 80 to to top 10, possibly top 5, but he never really got to demonstrate those powers to the capability he should have been able to demonstrate them to. And furthermore, he because of the lack of a final fight, this means he never got a proper conclusion to his character. But then again, most of the characters in Bleach don't have proper conclusions. And I can make an entire video just about that. But yeah, the oh yeah, we never got to see either of their goal standings if they actually have one. We never got to see like a new Lesser Steel from Uryu, like a perfected one. That's right. So no perfected Lesser Steel from Uryu, no vault standing or anything from Uryu, no vault standing from Hashwell, no vault standing from Bach. But then again, we never got a vault standing for Driscoll Bercy, the Lloyd twins, Nyizo, Grammy, Bernice Gabrielli, Ludus Friggers, who was one of the two Quincy and Raw cards that was introduced at the beginning of the arc. We never got a vault standing for Pernita. We might have got one for Miracle, but it was never really confirmed. He just kept transforming. The only elites that was confirmed that actually have vault standings was Askin and Lily Barrel. But I'm just gonna assume that the miracle transformations were indeed a full standing. I know this wing form that it came back with when it got revived was full standing. That's not a full standing, as far as we know. It would be nice if it was at least one of their full standings, because we see that the elites have like multiple transformations. But no. Yeah, what other steroids did we not see a full standing from? I don't even know. We barely got to see Kano BG9's full standing. Now I think about it. I mean, they showed it, but they barely got to use it because they used before they cut away from it. And we barely got to see them use their powers. In fact, BG9 and Robert's powers in particular, we don't even know what their powers are. We only just know their letters. The BG9's is K, and Robert's is N. K barely used his iron power, which was. I was kind of hoping that some of those guys were still alive so they can have proper defeats, but of course, they got taken out. Which is one of the other issues, is that almost half the Star Raiders got taken out by other Star Raiders. Whether it was Bach, Hatchwell, or another Star Raider. And the ones that weren't taken out by a Star Raider was at least, one of the Star Raiders at least attempted to do so, like Basby. Like, it was stupid. It was. I don't like when series do that. To me, it feels like you're robbing a character of a battle and a win when you have villains of this within the same group take each other out. It's different if you have an opposing villain group fight and take out another opposing villain group. That's different. Like with Pokemon, you have a Team Aqua and Team Magma. Those were two different opposing villain groups. So them taking each other out, that's different. That's not a problem. Or like in the anime with Team Rocket, or I guess Team Rocket versus Team Flare. Like that's different. But having Basby and Hashwell fight each other to the death, no, just no. Unless the Star Raider in question is defecting from the group, no. I guess you could say they did by that point, but really, okay, actually Basby was trying to take Bach out from behind, but that never really went anywhere. He just kind of, it's like he had this plan, and then he kind of just dropped it for a while, and then it got picked back up after Bach screwed them over. Now I was looking forward to that 8 Star Raider fight. In fact, I actually rearranged some of these fights of who I would have had fight who. For example, the 8 Star Raiders that appeared to try to fight Ichigo, I would have had them fight the Visors. That way, the Visors would have actually had a fight that they can fight and win against. Since there was 8 of them and 8 of the Visors, you have 8 of them fight each other. And I even have like the matchups of how this would go. I'd have like Shinji versus Robert, Kensei versus Basby, Love versus Nana. No, I mean Love versus Pepe. Nana. I guess Hachi versus Kansas Catnip. Lisa versus Giselle. Hiyori versus Lulu Lambert, and Mashiro versus Menias McAllen. Yes, I actually thought it up. That's how I would have had those fights go on. And I would have had each of them reveal like a full hollow form. Because remember when that hollow form? The only difference is that I would, instead of just her having one, I would have had all of them have one. The only difference is that Mashiro would have like I guess you could say like a more like mastered form of it. In fact, I would say her, Shinji, and Hachi like the mastered forms of the hollow forms, since they're supposed to be like the upper members of them, while the rest of them just have like regular full hollow forms. I would also have devices used as Zabutotes along with their hollow forms, since that way they would actually you could actually get to show their hollow forms and their Zabutote powers at their true potential. And of course, this will allow for Shinji and Love to go Bankai, and for Rose to complete his Bankai. Because if you remember, Rose never finished his Bankai. He just Well, yeah, Rose just never completed his Bankai. He just it got interrupted when Mask blasted him in the chest with his star beam. Well, actually, the attack itself was never named, but I'm calling it the star beam. Yeah, because his Bankai has 3 moves, and he only got to use 2. The third one got interrupted, so we don't know what it does. I'm not even sure if we even know what the name of it is, actually. I remember looking up a Bleach wiki like a year ago. Maybe they updated this now, but I don't remember. I forgot whether or not they actually had the name of it on there. And like I said before, the Bleach Wiki, or at least some of the people that work on the Bleach Wiki website, actually have their own podcast on YouTube where they review the chapters and do like discussion videos and stuff like that. And even they are disappointed with this arc. In fact, one of the admins, in particular, Sal, as he calls himself, flat out said that he does not like this arc. Now he hasn't really arc to do, but he's said he has a lot of grievances. Some of the grievances I agree with. Like again, there's the villains. They're not that interesting. I mean, they had the potential to be interesting, but they didn't get fleshed out as well as they should have because there wasn't enough. I don't know. Kubo didn't put enough. He didn't, I don't want to say he didn't give them enough screen time, but he gave them enough screen time in the sense of them interacting with each other outside of fights. So we never really got to find out any of their backstories and motivations. And again, like I said, we have some of their abilities work to function. And speaking of like going back to them, at least from a combat standpoint, why is it that Kyuge Kuroji OP is the only one? He's still in the J, by the way, J for the jail. Why does it seem like he's the only one that actually knows how to fight? With actual fighting skills. I'm just thinking about that. It's funny because when he was first introduced, he was first to show what the Quincy's can do now. What the Quincy's are capable of now. Here's the problem: all the cool stuff that he shows in that fight is hardly ever used again. Yeah, even like the basic stuff, at least the stuff that should be basic, like the blue vein and blue artery for the brain. That's like using increase like your defenses, and blue artery increase your offense. We hardly even get to see them use that anymore. All the other Star Raiders did was just go full standing, and even that, actually, it was really just them spamming their powers, and that's it. And I remember someone else also mentioned how their powers are very inconsistent, and I agree. Their powers are not very consistent at all. It's just something that's really been bothering me. Why is it come off more like Fulgrim powers? They don't feel Quincy at all. At least for what we know about Quincy so far. Like Fulgrim X powers. Now this would be fine if it was mentioned that these yeah.
The L delivery man. Wants an L. You get an L. You get an L.
You want to join the video?
L. Nope, just giving people L's.
Alright. Anyway, yeah, I was just talking about this Stern Raiders.
L's. L's for everybody.
Alright, anyway. Everything was my train of thought.
L.
Alright, where was I? Yeah, the Stern Raiders. I was saying like how their powers are very inconsistent with each other, and what else was I talking about? Yeah, so their powers are very inconsistent with each other. They which I understand why they would do that, because their powers are so OP, hacked, and nearly broken. Well, actually, I think some of their powers are just full broken. Because come on, imagination, that's our broken ability. Especially if you do not give it any type of limitations which Kubo did not do. He never established any limitations with that power. He just established a plot device. The plot device being that Gwen was an idiot, and he wasn't good at imagining things, which is more just stupid. It's stupidity, but whatever. But yeah, some of these powers didn't really have any limits, so they were just broken. So I can see why they didn't really use fighting skills because they didn't have to. It makes sense from a more realistic standpoint because one thing I've noticed in real life is that if you don't have to do something, and sure enough, he didn't do it. They didn't have to actually train and so they didn't. And because of that, it just fails. It makes the fights very underwhelming. And considering how long some of those fights were, it was just boring. And but this is also because of the chapter layouts as well. That this has always been a problem. This has been a problem for Bleach for a while now, which is the way Kubo lays out his chapters, which is big and white panels, little to no background, little to no dialogue, and just just swings, energy blasts, and people dashing around, and facial expressions. So because of the way Kubo laid out his chapters, it made things take longer than they should have. So that already affected the pacing, which is why some of these fights took longer than they needed to. And it just took a while to get to points. I mean, why do you think the whole Ishin Ryukin thing never really? Why do you think they didn't get a chance to do anything, or the Iran cars, or the Fulbers, or any other characters that haven't showed up yet? Because Kubo took a long time to introduce them, reintroduce them to the story, or get them to the battlefield fast enough. And because Kubo took them so long to get there, all they could do is just serve as plot devices, or give the characters plot devices to take down Juabak. A good example of this would be the first half of 2015, when I still consider the worst year of Bleach. Because the second half was just horrible fights, but the first half was little to nothing of substance happening. Because the first half of 2015 was basically everybody trying to get, and yes, it took half the year to get there. Ichigo's group was already up there, but Ichigo screwed up. Meanwhile, everyone else is just kind of just laxy daisy and trying to get, just chilling. You would think they try to move a little more urgency, considering the world's at stake. I understand that they didn't know what was going on up there. They didn't know that the Soul King got absorbed, and I still wonder if they even know about that. Do they know that the Soul King got absorbed by Juhaba? Do they know that Ichigo played a part in the killing and defeat of the Soul King? Do they know any of this? Uh, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't because of how long it took for them to get there and how little they had time to actually interact with each other. But yeah. All right. Before I go any further, I want to shout out to Ray Skywalker. Because I am looking at these. I am looking at the chat, so I should probably address some of the stuff that he talked about in this thing. The first comment he left is first half started off strong, but Kubo effed up the second invasion. I agree with that, obviously. The way Yuha was killed off is gonna bother me for a while. I've said this before at the beginning of the video. I'm not sure if you if you saw it already, but I don't have a problem with it. I don't. Not to say I liked it, but I thought it was decent. I think it's the most decent you're gonna get with Ichigo being the one to defeat Bach at this point in time. Because I've been said this before. Ichigo did not have the tools to defeat Bach on his own. So this playing out the way it played out I think it's as decent as it's going to get as far as Ichigo beating him. All right, so here's the list of his problems that he has with this arc, I guess. All right, so he says the first problem is Ichigo's Zamato. The second problem is Yuha's almighty ability. The third problem is Aizen's credibility is long gone. I I don't agree with that. I think Aizen still has his credibility. The problem with Aizen though is that he didn't really get a chance to do much of anything in this arc because again, it took so long for them to properly reintroduce him into the story. I mean, in the flashback in chapter 510 where we saw that Aizen was messing with Juha's perception. But again, it goes back to the pacing issue and Kubo just leaving things alone for a long time and then not following up with it for a very long time. So because of that, it took a long time for Aizen to actually get a chance to do anything, despite the fact that not only is Aizen one of the most important characters in the series, it was one of the main villains of the series for at least half the series, but was also supposed to be one of the 5 war potentials, which I'll get into a little later. If there's anything that really pissed me off in this arc, it's that. Alright, you are on my ability. I agree. That thing was just broken. I've heard a few people that try to debate that it's not broken. It's just no, it's broken. Having the power to see not just a future, but every possible future, and then change those futures, even the futures in which you die. That's broken. Like there's really no way you could beat that unless you have like really the only characters that could be able to counter that would be like Uryu, Hashbolt, Aizen, Tsukishima, Orihime, Ichibe, and maybe Ginjo. Because Ginjo, if I recall, had the power to steal people's powers. I'm surprised that wasn't brought up in this arc, but you know. Oh yeah, Ginjo, remember him? Is anyone disappointed that we're never gonna find out about this guy's backstory? I know a lot of people don't care about it by this point. I know. I remember Tekken went on a rant about it in his 5 things that make no sense in Bleach video, where he talked about how Ginjo, even if he was to get a backstory in this arc, he wouldn't care because he's not the main focus of this arc anymore. But I was kind of hoping we were at least gonna get something with him, but unfortunately we didn't. He did nothing in this arc actually. All he did was just stand there and pose. I would have thought that at least his stealing power would have played a part. And that's another thing too. Really got to see. We never really got to legitimately find out what his fulcrum power did, or his soldier powers for that matter. That's disappointing. Yes, Ichigo Zamato, I would agree this is a problem, but this would be much lower on the list mainly because at this point I've already stopped caring about Ichigo Zamato. Zamato stopped being interesting a long time ago. Like his powers have always been very basic. It's just stat boots. That's what his powers are. The best thing about his Zamato was the designs of it. His Shikai, his Bankais, and when the outfit changed when he went into Bankai. That was really the only cool things that he really had about his Zamato. Beyond that, really wasn't that interesting. Because all it did was again boost his stats up. Gave him more speed, more strength, and all that crap. All those mainly. And I could go into a whole rant about how the speed thing just became irrelevant, but I think that was just Kubo's way of trying to try to hype up the villains, but of course in doing that he kind of, how do I say this? I was gonna say de-hyped Ichigo, but that's not a word. But you get what I'm saying. Alright, so I think I talked about all 3 of these issues. Okay, Ray's other issue, he's saying that this is number 4. He says Orihime's involvement in this fight with Yuha and how she faked Ichigo Zamato. Yes, I'm gonna say I am disappointed with what happened with Orihime. Now, for the record, I am not a fan of her character at all. So, Swag Hime, if you wind up watching this, I'm not a fan of Orihime, but I don't hate her character. I did hate her during the fake Heart Curse House section and the Wake of Mundo section of the Rocket Saga, but that's because that's when her character was at her absolute lowest, at least in my personal. She's gotten a little better since then, but still. So yeah, I don't really care about it that much, but right now I am disappointed that she didn't get to do much. I was kind of hoping that her powers were gonna play a role in at least into healing the Soul King, at least for a moment, but that didn't even work because Boff basically cock blocked her powers. Where her powers should be. She tried to use her powers. He put a firewall that block an ad blocker because of his old almighty thing. And it's also disappointing that she needed Super Seaman's help to actually heal Ichigo's Bankai. But I guess her powers weren't broken enough. Not really talked about the Fulgurians. At least I talked about Genjo and Tsukushima. The other Fulgurians, yeah, they could have did more, but like I said, it took for them so long to get there, so it's whatever. Unfortunately, this means none of them are going to get redeemed, as far as being made to look like losers in the Fulgurian arc. So I still like the Fulgurians, but yeah. Right now, I'm surprised you didn't mention Grimjaw, but I'll just talk about the Espada in general. Yes, the remaining Espada was disappointing. Grimjaw, I wasn't expecting too much from Grimjaw, but I was expecting a little more than what we got. Because Kubo did actually hype up Grimjaw. Whether the level of hype, you guys can debate that, but he did. He hyped him up in the sense that he had him one-shot Kyuuge from behind. You can say that Kyuuge was already severely injured by that point, but he still took him out in one hit. That's still impressive. And again, Grimjaw's another one that took so long to get there. Then when he finally gets there, he gets immediately taken out by Askin. That's just disappointing. He just immediately gets destroyed. Nell doesn't even get the fight at all. And she needs to be redeemed because of her performance against Noitora. His mentor, she got turned back into a kid, had to be saved by not only Ichigo but Kanpachi. And had basically, he had to finish a fight for her. And then after that, she gets chucked away into the rest of the saga. And then after a long time, we finally get to see her. She's a kid, and then we go to Wakamundo. Then Ichigo leaves there, and we don't see her for a while again. And then she comes back as an adult. It's like yes. And not only that, but you find out that Kisuke gave her these rings or bracelets or whatever, gauntlets, whatever the thing was. To like a kid and adult at will. So he's like, yes, Nell's back, Grimjaw's back. We're about to go ham. And we assumed that Hannibal was gonna come back too, because like this, yeah, Ida's army's back. Nothing. Grimjaw gets bodied. I mean, sure, you say he kind of gets redeemed when he does the whole like Mortal Kombat finishing move on Askin, but he needed Kisuke's help to do so, and it looked bad in that fight because he had to team up with the injured Grimjaw to do it. It would have been different if they teamed up from the start of that fight and be like, yeah, we're gonna team up to take you out. Instead of just having Grimjaw come in, get destroyed, then having like Yoruichi go in there and fight and then get destroyed, and Ichigo's group get destroyed, and then having Kisuke come in, get jacked up, and then having Grimjaw come back after being healed by Kisuke's Bankai, and then having him finish him off, and then having Nell have to go and save everyone that was still in the battlefield. If the fight had started with all of them fighting as one unit, it would have looked better. Because when you have characters get jacked, you have a character show up, get jacked up, and then another character show up to save them. You make that previous character look bad now. So here's the thing: I'm not knocking team fights. I think team fights are good, but only when they're done well. And unfortunately, I don't think Kubo's done a lot of good team fights because of the way he does it. Because instead of having them all be there from the start, and, have them work as one unit, have them work as a team, and have them, strategize and all that, he has them go there. He has like one or two characters go into the battle, get jacked up, get bodied, have another character come and save them, and then have this formula play out until the battle ends. And sometimes he'll have a previous character come back, save them only to get bodied again, like the Massey Litter fight where we had Kensei Rose continuously getting bodied multiple times against the same dude, which was stupid. And I already talked about the Fulburners. The Fulburners, the Visors. I already talked about how they were disappointing. There's one other thing I will say about the visors though. It's funny how people complain about the visors being disappointing in the fake hard Kurita war, in the fake hard Kurita arc, but that's nothing compared to how disappointed they've been in this arc. You want to talk about being crapped on? This arc they've been crapped on so bad. Kurita arc look good. It's that bad. Ugh. Like, when you get by multiple times by the same dude, it's just bad. And the worst part is that it was all done just to have a Renji. And don't get me wrong, I like Renji's character. He's actually one of my favorite characters. But they have those guys get beaten up just to make him look good. That's not how you hype up. That's not how you hype up a character. You shouldn't hype up a character by knocking other characters down. I know you have to make the enemies look good and make them look tough, but having these guys get completely and constantly taken down multiple times by the same, that's not cool. And what's worse is that none of those characters really got any redemption for it either. It would have been okay if they actually got redemption for their failures, but they never do. Do the other characters aside from Matthew Masculine? Of course they do. Do they win? No. Because I think the next major fight they had was against the Miracle, and you already know how that was going to turn out. So when Kubo started trying to hype them up, I was just like, why was up to fail again? And what's even worse is that he showed these guys with new moves. Because he showed Lisa have a new move. He showed Hachi with a new move. Doesn't get expanded on. And then new moves sounded kind of cool because it was kind of like it kind of went with their characters. I'm not sure if they were like new Jutsu moves or Hakuna moves or Kido moves or was it moves from the Zamak Toes. And speaking of Zamak Toes, complaining about the Bankai not going to be shown. What about the Shikais? There's still characters Shikais we don't even know what they are, and there's still characters who we still even know even have a Zamak Toe. There's no clarification on that, but the ones we do like Isane, Tetsuzamo Iba, Isari, Mashi, Hachi. Yes, he does have a Zamato people. And I think Tessai as well, but I'm not too sure about him. We're not gonna see what they do. I'm really annoyed with the Yoruichi thing though, because that one pisses me off the most. Because not only are we never gonna find out what a Zamato is, we're never gonna get explanation for a cat form. It's just gonna be it's just gonna be, the darkness, the abyss of that whole situation. Yeah. Ugh. So yeah, a lot of these characters didn't even get satisfying conclusions. You have characters that were kind of built up, not just in this arc, but for years. Like all right, Hizaki. Hizaki has been a major mention and focus for a lot of people. A lot of people have been talking about how he's been a big disappointment. Here's the thing, Hizaki's hype. For anyone that wants to defend this whole, Hizaki might begin to overhype it. Anyone that wants to defend the Hizaki crap on, Hizaki's hype did not just happen in this arc. His hype started in his battle with Findor in the Fikar Kuritan War. Since then, that's when Hizaki's hype has been going there. Because first we got to see his Zabato, we got to see his fighting skills, we got to see his Kido and stuff. That's when the hype for him started. Not only that, but it was also mentioned at some point that him, Kira, Rangiku, and I think even Chika, maybe, that those 3 to 4 characters were, like, aside from Renji, were the closest non-captains to achieving Bankai. So when Hizaki was actually confirmed to actually, everyone was hyped. Because a lot of people like his Shikai. I like it too. It's really cool. It's really interesting. And I remember when Kensei said about Hizaki when he got bodied by Massey Madison. I really like that line because that line just basically it basically says what I think what all the fans felt when that happened. You never got to show the fruits of your labor. That's right, we never got to see it ever, and he never got. Now we're not gonna see it unless it's in a data book or something. It's just whack. Another character who's maybe not as hyped, but he still has some hype to him. Shiraizuru. I mentioned him because the idea of him having Bankai was hype, I would think, longer than Hisagi's Bankai. Now it hasn't been confirmed if he understood that he does, or at least I think he should have one. It's been built up for some time now, and Kumo's already kind of hyped up the idea of him having one. Because he actually said that his Bankai, if he was to get one, it would be like not, it would be like very nauseating, depressing, and it would it's supposed it makes him sick to his stomach. Now I'm not a big fan of Kira, but I think he's a pretty decent character. I really want to see that, and I like his Zanbakuto. Like to me, him and Hisagi's I think are something that's interesting. They're like the darker, they're the darker Zanbakutos. And seeing a Bankai of those would be really cool. Don't get to see it. I was disappointed when he got taken out by Basby, but at the same time, it was kind of fitting because this whole like, what he said to what's the bird guy he fought. We said like death is not glorious and how I'm not good and all that other crap. But when Kubo brought him back as a cyborg zombie guy, I thought this was because all right, this must mean that he does have a Bankai and he's going to show it, whether it's against the remains of Lily Barrow or otherwise. Now we get to see it. So what's the point of bringing him back? Really, to me, the only reason to bring him back by that point would be to show his Bankai, but we don't get to see it. There's other characters that people speculate that might get a Bankai like Rangiku and again Yumachika and Omaida and maybe even Momo. None of them do. None of them. It's sad because I feel like they might have been foreshadowing for those guys to actually get a Bankai. Because if you remember in the Zanbakuto Rebellion filler arc, the non-captain characters who didn't have a Bankai at that point in time, or at least we didn't know how a Bankai at that point in time, Zanbakuto spirits were shown. Think about it. You had Rukia, Chojiro Sakakibe, Hisagi, Momo, Rangiku, Michika, Omaida, and Hinataro. These all fast forward to the Dalgia Global arc. Because you have to remember the Rebellion filler arc, that happened like during the it was placed in the middle of the fake hardcore town, so it was during that whole situation. So fast forward to the Dalgia Blow arc. So Jiro Sakakibe is revealed to have a Bankai. Rukia gets a Bankai. Izaki gets a Bankai. Hiro's been hyped up to have a Bankai. And then you also have Rangiku Yamachiga that's been speculated that might have Bankai, that have to have the potential to achieve Bankais. And then you have Omaida who's been speculated to have a Bankai because of this whole scene of him touching the hollow pill. Excuse me. Oops. Sorry about that. Yeah, I know when you're speaking for a long time, especially with RCF, it takes a toll on you. I don't know how long this video's been going on. It's getting hot up in here. Whew. Ugh, goodness gracious. Excuse me about that. I had to get some water in my throat. Whew. So yeah, you have the about the hollow pill thing. So there was a scene where Omida touches a hollow pill. All right. So what happened? Four of the captains get their Bankai stolen. So Shiro gets his Bankai stolen by King Do. Sofron gets her 9. Komor gets his stolen by Bambietta, and Bianca gets his stolen by Asnot. So after the first invasion, you have the scene where all the vice captains and like senior officers, prominent senior officers, but mainly the vice captains, are training. Now, when this happened, everyone's thinking, all right, maybe some of these captains are going to start learning Bankai. Or they're very strict. Either way, it looked like the vice captains were going to step up. So, fast forward to the second invasion. Omida pushes the hollow pill to Soy for, and it looks like he touches one for himself because Kisuke winds up he winds up designing these hollow pills to get the Bankais back that were stolen. And he made it for all the captains and vice captains because he didn't know who's not he didn't really know who got their Bankai stolen, and he didn't know the ones that actually had a Bankai. As far as the vice captains concerned, because he knows Renji has a Bankai, but he doesn't know if any of the other vice captains have Bankais. So to just make things more easier, he just made 26 hollow pills or so. Basically, with hollow pills for all the captains and vice captains present during that point in time. And I think there's a scene where Omida touches one. This is where it gets everyone gets hyped that, oh crap, Omida might have a Bankai. And bringing up the whole Zanbakuto filler arc thing again, like I said, I think that might have been foreshadowing because the non-captain characters who didn't have a Bankai at that point in time, who had that Zanbakuto spirit shown, some of them actually wind up achieving a Bankai. So that might have been foreshadowing that some characters were at least capable of achieving Bankai. Unfortunately, that never comes into fruition for certain characters. And I do think I think it would be cool if Omida, especially especially if this was supposed to be the arc where characters are going to start surpassing other characters, which I think should have happened since I will, especially for Renji and Ikaku. Those two characters in particular were trying to surpass their captains. I know Ikaku also has this thing where he wants to live and die under his captain, but let's say Kampachi was to die in this arc or get promoted to Royal Guard or Central 46 or something else. Well, the next person to step up, the next person to become a captain would be him. So I think it would make sense. And the thing too is that not all these characters are gonna be captains forever. Because some of them are either gonna step down, they're gonna get promoted to something higher than a captain, or they might get killed off and they just might retire, whatever. And they're gonna have to have somebody to, take their mantle. Ikaku Ikaku's another one that is just disappointing because he probably has had more hype than even Hizagi. He's had more hype than Hizagi, he's had more hype than Kira, he's had more hype than some of these other characters. Because he was one of the more prominent side characters. He's been a main focus since the Soul Society arc. And he's actually had consistent focus. And he's had you got to see his backstory, his drive, his motive. You got to see his little rivalry with like Ichigo and Renji and Tentazarmo. Even though none of them really went anywhere. Well, he was also sort of a mentor to Renji as well, which is why Renji had like a lot of respect for him. And he was also a character that achieved Bankai. In fact, he achieved it before Ichigo and Renji, because you gotta remember, Ichigo and Renji achieved their Bankai at the same time. Ikaku had his before them. Unfortunately, we've only seen this Bankai once. When Mayuri mentioned, it was either Mayuri or Akin, Mayuri's dirt sheet. When one of them mentioned that his Bankai got repaired by Squad 12, I was like, yes, maybe so. I guess he's gotten like his own version of a new Bankai. I was kind of hoping we was going to see that, especially with the hype that we saw from him in the Wolverine arc. Despite the race of Fulbright not being that big of a threat, they did sort of serve their purpose to hype up the Soul Reapers, except for Rukia. But we're not going to get into that because that was. Anyway, well, the main ones that seemed like they were getting hyped up was Kenpachi, Toshiro, Renji, and Ikaku. Because Kenpachi cuts Giro in half, he one shots him. Toshiro beats Yukio with only his. And this was, I think, also around the time where he was Bankai. Renji, who I think easily had the second best feats of the entire arc aside from Kenpachi, not only does he one shot Jackie, he one shots her without even fully unsheathing his sword. But he also tanks two of Jackie's hits. The first one sent Renji flying, and then he stops himself from flying, which was cool. And then he blocks the second one with his wrist, and he goes like this, and then the anime looks so hilarious because his pupils are really small. And when the soldiers first got reintroduced in the arc in the anime, their eyes were like glowing red. Obviously, that was the anime effect. It was so funny. And it was real cool hype. It was all like, oh crap. And then you had Ikaku who beat Mo with his bare hands and a headbutt. I was like, yes. And then the next arc they get their butts handed to them. Like it's one thing for that to happen in the first invasion because it's the first invasion. You're supposed to be hyping up the villains, but in the second invasion, that's just no, no, unacceptable. No. So Ikaku never uses his Bankai again. We never get to see what his fixed Bankai looks like. And we know Bankai can get altered drastically. We've seen that with Renji, we've seen that with Ichigo, we've seen that with Mayuri and Komamura. All that Bankai completely changed, which is weird. I'm not too crazy about the redesigns. Personally, I think the redesigns that they had should have been like third releases. Now you could have them changed, but having them changed to a completely different transformation or weapon. I think that was a bit extreme. That could have just been like a third release. Like, oh wait, we found like there's a third release after Bankai. That would have been cool because remember when Ichigo and Aizen's when they were at the end of the Ranka Saga they were fusing with their Zamatos. That could have been like the progression to a third release. But that of course that didn't go anywhere either. So yeah, disappointment on that end. As I said, a lot of them didn't even get final fights. Any hype their characters got was destroyed. All right, let's see. Ray says that the Stereo girls were the only things I liked about the second invasion. Yes, the Femirays were actually pretty cool, especially Giselle. She was easily the best one. Soul King, yes, the Soul King was disappointing. Soul King has no durability. He makes absolutely no sense. Like Kubo didn't even explain the Soul King. Like of all the things that you could have explained, that should have been one of the main priorities. We don't even get an explanation of him. Now the Soul King is just an enigma. And if you remember, the Soul King is supposed to be like the father of Juha Bach, which would mean that he's also the father of the Quincy's and not just the Soul Reapers. But not only that, but you also have you have Ukatake with one of the limbs. You have Juha, who has like what, two of them as his Stern Raiders. We still don't even know. We still haven't got a confirmation of whether or not there's actually legs of the Soul King running around. Remy might actually be the confirmed yet. And yes, Grammy needs to be explained. Like, what the fudge? But then again, most of the not full breeds, the stories need backstories because most of them don't have backstories. Most of them don't even have personalities. Most of them we even get to see their default standings. Most of them didn't really have good fighting skills. We didn't really get to see much character interactions with a lot of them outside of battles. We didn't get to see their motivations. So they didn't even really feel like characters. They feel like caricatures. All right. Yeah. Oh yeah, we barely even got to see the the Quincy Ice Palace or the Shadow Realm. We didn't really get to see much of that. which is disappointing. I thought he was gonna, at least gonna go there. So yeah, very disappointing. What else? All right, let's see what else he said. Chapter 678. What happened in chapter 678 anyway? Oh, that's right. When Ichiro's Bankai broke, I was in the middle with that chapter because I really know how to feel about it. I enjoyed 679 more because it was just hilarious with Ichiro getting trolled by Boss. Let's see. Dex Machina Arrow. I already talked about that. I don't think. Yes, it is a. I don't really fully. I don't really fully think it's a Deus Machina. I just think. It's definitely a plot device for sure, but I don't necessarily think it's a Deus Machina per se. That would definitely what you call it an asshole. Just feels like one. But again, it's still poor writing because the way Kubo presented it. It's like Bleach suffers from having too many characters. That's his biggest flaw. Yes, I agree with that. Kubo. Yes, Bleach does indeed have too many characters. Despite the fact that out of the big three, Bleach actually might be the smallest of them in terms of cast of characters. Yes, because I actually think Naruto might have a bigger cast of characters than Bleach does. And One Piece for sure definitely has a bigger cast than both Naruto and Bleach combined. But I think the difference is that they can handle their characters. Well, maybe not necessarily Kishimoto because that had this problem because he mainly just focused on like Naruto and Sasuke and kind of just ignore most of the other characters. But I think it's more noticeable with Bleach because of how more prominent a lot of these characters are or supposed to be. They don't get the screen time that they need. It's way more noticeable. Like I said, there's a lot of Shikai and Bugs I didn't get to see. Ishin Ryuga didn't even get to do much of anything in this arc, so that's disappointing. Like I said, a lot of characters didn't get final fights. Chad basically just got thrown to the side. At least he's doing something, but it's not really of anything of actual significance. He's just fighting on him as aka the statues with Ganju. Whatever happened to Cone? Because my sister brought this up earlier to me. I completely forgot about him. Remember when he had that muscle form? Did Kubo just forget about that? Oh yeah, yes, Rukia. Don't even get me started with Rukia. Rukia's been disappointing since the time skip started, honestly. Because first she loses to Ruruga. That's her first fight after the time skip, not only losing to a foe who was arguably the weakest of the four brothers, Ruruga. And then she gets taken out off screen by some unknown Stern Raider in the first invasion. Then she goes to Royal Guard training. Then she comes back hockey like when she was talking to Reggie and say how he's that what did he say? She was saying to Reggie that he's too weak for you. I remember people got pissed off with that. I got pissed off with that because I was like, yo, you are skating on thin ice right now. You cannot be saying crap like that. You need to worry about your own fight. And sure enough, her next major fight is against Akai, which I already knew was going to happen. I was hoping that wasn't going to happen because here's the thing. It would have been fine if Byakuya was actually killed off in the first invasion, but because Kubo detracted it because of the whole fan backlash and the death threat he was getting, all that other crap, he kept Byakuya alive. And because it was clear that Kubo was going to have each of the characters have revenge fights against the Stern that they lost to that was still alive. So having Rukia be the first one to confront Asuna was just a disaster waiting to happen. And sure enough, she gets saved by Byakuya. And I've heard some people, and even we looked that up, some reviews for it. I've seen people even now still trying to defend that catastrophe. Here's the problem with that whole situation. Yes, Byakuya didn't physically injure Asuna. Make that claim he didn't do that, but he still saved Rukia. Rukia still needed his help to defeat out bad thing, to get more support. That's fine, but that's not what happened. Actually, he gave her more support, but he did way more than that. He literally saved her from being mind raped by Avnar. Because here's the thing: had Asnot had Byakuya not shown up, Rukia would have lost. Basically, this is the way I would have done it. I would have had Rukia break out of the fear thing herself, and then take out and then go Bankai against Asnot. Because when Rukia got saved by Byakuya, and then went Bankai at the end of the next chapter, I was not hyped about it because any hype that could have had with Rukia going Bankai and taking him out was just null void because of the fact that she just got saved again. I mean, sure, she was able to defeat her opponent, but she couldn't do it by herself. She still needed Byakuya somebody to save her, so that's still disappointing. It's showing that she still cannot stand on her own 2 feet. That's not good character development. And what's worse is that was her last major fight that she had. At least last major fight that she was a main focus in. I mean, sure, she also fought the Miracle, but she got immediately taken out there as well. She also confronted Basby with Renji, but that didn't go anywhere because that fight got um interrupted by Bach with the whole Ash Rollin thing. So yeah, that was her last major fight with her as a main focus. And while she won, it was still a flop because she couldn't get out the thing on her own. That's showing that she still has a long way to go before she could become a captain or just anything. And horrible. So at this, when you look at it from that point, you could say she's forever trash now. People attacking would defend her, and I would too, but she's not. But at this point, because of that failure and as well as her previous failures throughout the series, I can't really consider her a good character. And especially with that would have had it played out the way I said it should have played out. I think it would have been way better for our character. She would have been able to redeem herself. She would have been able to fully grow as a character. She would have been able to learn how to stand up on her own 2 feet. She would be able to finally get over the fears that she had, or the anxiety and other past issues. But that didn't happen. Just disappointing. And she didn't even get involved in the final fight. She was just left behind with Orihime. Didn't really get a chance to do much of anything either. So it's like they're both just forever trash at this point. Disappointing. Yeah, so that was just Alright, let's see what this arc has. Oh yeah, let's go into the Unohana thing because I have some issues with this. Not just with her, but Ukitake as well. I'm gonna be straight. I am not a fan of what happened with them in this arc. I'm very annoyed by it. It's funny because people complain about characters not dying in Bleach. I'm not saying that. There are characters that did legitimately die in this arc that wasn't a villain. But here's the problem: the characters that were taken out, at least I feel, didn't really. Not to say they didn't deserve it, but they shouldn't have been taken out as soon as they were. Thus, bring us to Unohana and Ukitake. These two characters were taken out quickly. I say this because they didn't really get to do much of anything in this entire series. They did very little in the series to warrant them just being taken out like that. And despite that, they do have some hype to them, not nearly as much hype as like Tsushima Yamamoto or something like that, but they still have some decent hype to them. And to see them just being taken out so prematurely, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. This could also be a little more biased on my part because I am a big fan of those two characters. Unohana and Ukitake are my two favorite captains. So, of course, that's going to affect me more when it comes to that on a personal note. And I understand why Kubo did it because he needed characters to die for characters. Not a lot of people really talk about them, not a lot of people really care. Except for the whole Ugatake getting one shot by Wonder Woman thing. That pissed off a lot of people. And rightfully so, because that should have never happened. And it's because of that why I think Ukitake really needed a shining moment in this arc, because he needed to redeem himself for that disaster. Granted, Kensei Machu also got taken out by Wonder Wise. It still looks worse for Ukitake because he got one shot from behind and he never got back up. And again, he hardly got to do much of it before that fight. And of course, he's another one that hasn't gotten to show his bronchi because he hasn't got a chance to get enough screen time because he's always sick. And coming from someone who has like a lung disease, well, you know, well, mine's a little more than that, but coming from someone like that who has a medical condition, no, a character like Ukitake does resonate with me from a personal standpoint. And just seeing him how him get treated the way he did is just disappointing. And I really like this character also because I like his personality. I like how caring he is. I also like his shady side as well. I liked his Zamato. I liked his relationship with Rukia and Susui and Yamamoto. And it's just sad that he got taken out the way he did. How did he get taken out? He sacrificed himself to help the Soul King, which didn't even work. All it actually amounted to was him getting all he did was actually give Baka power up, and then that was it. I mean, there's still speculation that he might be alive, and maybe he is, but it's obvious at this point he's not going to do anything past this point because the next chapter is going to be the last chapter. So even if he is still alive, he's done. We're not seeing anything from him anymore. So it's not happening. Oh goodness gracious, it's stupid. Ugh. And Unohana. Like Unohana was said to be like one of the original Gote 13 captains. She has been so like slightly hyped up, like more like look for her like her whole scary face gag. Because that always implied that she had a dark side to her. She always gets since Ryukatake and some of the other captains. She never really got a chance to fight much. There were chances where she had to, it never really happened because she's the medic. Therefore she can't fight. And when Kubo said that she was gonna fight in this arc, I was so excited. I was hyped. Big fight that she's gonna have was against Kampachi for as a training session, no less. Disappointing. What's even worse is that was going to be her only fight because they're going to have a fight to this point until only one Kampachi can stand. I understand why you can see he was doing that from an aesthetic standpoint and the whole old generation is faster than the new generation, but did it have to be at the cost of her life? And if you was going to do that, you should at least given her a fight that she actually won before that. At least it would have like have at least then you know it would it wouldn't be as distasteful. But to see her basically used as a plot device, as a stepping stone for Kampachi to get a power up, that's disgusting. That's just absolutely disgusting. Like, oh my goodness, that crap disgusted me. I'm still mad about it, and I will continue to be mad about it for until there's some type of resolution to it. Which there could be if Kubo makes any like spin-offs or sequels to Bleach, like or make some resolution, a data book or something, or some type of continuation, whether it's anime, movies, OVA, novels, etc. But to have her go out like that is just wow. I'm I am shocked that I understand what logic was with that, but I don't like it. I think Kubo could have went a better route with it. He could have just had Unohana just relinquish the title and just have her be like a regular captain. He didn't have to kill her off like that. I mean, you could still kill her off, but at least have her do something before killing her off. Just having her kill all of that's it. No, absolutely unacceptable. Yeah, I'm pissed off about that. And while we did actually get to see her, while we did get to, we got to see her Bankai, it made no sense. Which brings me to one of my big problems with this arc as well, which is the Bankai reveals. I cannot be the only one that's underwhelmed by most of these Bankais. In fact, there's only three Bankais in this arc that was shown that I actually liked. Yamamoto's, Ichibe's, and Rose's for what we got to see of it, because we never got to see the full his full Bankai as I mentioned earlier. The rest of them, Unohana's was disappointing, Strospree's was disappointing, Kisuke was disappointing. I'm going to talk about those three in particular because they would. Because for me personally, I know a lot of people have their own problems with those Bankais, but for me personally, those Bankais were disappointing for all the similar reasons. One big issue I really have with all three of the Bankais is that there is no correlation with the Shikai of any kind. It just feels completely random. Like seriously, how do you go from a manta ray healing liquid Shikai thing to whatever the crap that Bankai was? Because it wasn't even fully explained. It wasn't explained at all. She showed us like a few panels, and then she went back to it, and then she died at the end of the chapter. Like it looked like it was like some type of like acid, blood, skeleton illusion thing, but we don't know for sure. The only thing I really liked about the Bankai was the name of it because I heard that the name of the Zamato Mizuki it has like two meanings. That's the only thing I liked about it because that one actually seems clever, but the way it was designed was just stupid. The way I would have had her Bankai be is yeah, so her Bankai is her Shikai with her healing like Manta Ray. I would have had her Bankai be Stingray. See, that's a proper upgrade. So we could have had electric abilities. You could have had like this acid blood thing coming out of his mouth. You could still kind of do what Kubo did with the Bankai, but just have it make more sense in the context of Rizama told that's already been previously established. But then again, Kubo, he's known for contradicting himself and retconning himself, and that's one of the things. And this goes into another thing. I know a lot of people would disappointed with the Royal Guard, but I'm gonna be honest. I didn't really like the Royal Guard that much, mainly because I felt like they kind of retconned some things, like the Soul Key. Like the nature of how the Soul Key was created was essentially retconned. I'm surprised no one talks about this. I don't know if maybe it's because I'm wrong and there's something I'm missing in that explanation, or people just completely just skimmed over it and forgot about it. But for what we found out, that the way to make a soul key, apparently there's another way compared to the way Isaac went about doing it. The way I see it, that's a retcon. Not only is a retcon, it's almost like a cop out in a sense. The easy way out of making a soul key, because the way Kubo originally established was to make the soul key, you have to. It requires a huge facility of where souls locate and 100,000 souls. Now, for example, like that's why Aizen had that whole Aranka war in the first place because he was trying to destroy Karakura Town because he needed town itself along with 100,000 souls to create the key, so he can the Soul Palace. But now, all we find out not only was all Aizen needed to do trap up enough for the Royal Guard to show up. He can just hitch a ride with them and then go to the Soul Palace, and all he would have to do is just use his own Hyogetsu on them. And don't tell me he couldn't sneak that in. He somehow he snuck it into him, and just on that obviously Aizen put Juhabaka under his Hyogetsu before he activated his Almighty ability, because his Almighty power got activated during his battle with Ichibe, which was way after his when he tried to recruit him into his army. But yeah, that's all Isaac needed to do was just mess up enough crap for for the Royal Guard to show up. And all he needed to do then was just kill Yamamoto, and which he could have done because he was already on the ground. He could have just wiped them out. For some reason, he didn't finish the job because plot. But and I remember someone else mentioning this with in King Lightning in the comment section of King Lightning's video about Drew Harbach being a better villain than Aizen. One of the people mentioned how Drew Harbach basically had Drew Harbach was succeeding because the plot allowed him to. Aizen had the plot working against them, and I agree with that. In fact, Aizen helped Bach in a sense because even though Aizen did ultimately lose, he did cripple the Soul Society to a certain degree. He wiped out Central 46, which took them a while to replace them. Because of the fact that Dean, and Tozen defected, it left 3 captain seats vacant. He wanted to Yamamoto and Soifa wanted up losing their arm, so at least Soifa got left without an arm. So yes, the Soul Society was actually injured because of that whole situation. So that actually made things a lot easier for Drew Harbach to just invade. So if anything, Drew Harbach should have been thanking Aizen for his stuff, because had that not happened, they probably would have had a much harder time to actually fighting them. Because like examining the whole thing from the shadows, they got to see a lot of how the Soul Reapers fight and stuff, specifically the captains, which allowed them I'm assuming, to design the whole Bangai Steel medallions in the first place. So again, I needed plot allowed you to get a lot of stuff done. Well, the plot was working against Aizen, so it was really unfair in that sense. But yeah, the Soul Key thing, and yeah, even with the Soul Palace, and that's another thing too, because I also felt like that's another thing that change up was the fact that I felt like it disrespected Aizen's character, because it basically made it seem like all the crap that Aizen did to try to make the Soul Key was for naught. It was just a waste of time. It's basically like you're crapping on his face. You're taking a piss on him. You're spitting on his face. All you do is just troll more. Come on, that's just disrespectful. Oh, I guess I guess he was right about Aizen being disrespecting his art, because he actually was. I guess a lot more than I thought he did. He was. And then you have the whole Nimaya Oetsu being the father of Okazawa. What? I am so indifferent to this because on one hand, it sounds cool on paper, and it looks cool when he one shot all the elites, especially 3 of them at the same time. But at the same time, I mean, again, and another thing, like, if the Zamatos are going through him, how come they've never met? Well, actually, maybe they haven't met the Royal Guard. I don't know. We don't know for sure. Some of them start and the others don't. Like Unohana has history with Korinji, and Mayuri has history with Shutara. I don't know. But then again, Unohana and Mayuri, they could be exceptions because Unohana was part of the original Day 13, Day 13 cap. And Mayuri, well, he's Mayuri, so it would make sense that he would at least know one of them. He's a mad scientist. He was locked up in prison at some point. For just the thought of him being dangerous. So it's not really surprising, especially how saw the Soul King, and we're never gonna get an explanation of that. We're never gonna get any expansion on that. Another thing I should mention too, going back to characters that were prominent but became like less prominent to irrelevant in this. Also, prominent side character from the Soul Society arc to the end of the Raka saga. What happened to that? Since Kubo played a big part in this arc, not necessarily to do with her relationship with Gin or the Hogyoku and Aizen, and maybe something to do with Ishin, because she was Ishin's vice captain back in the day when he was a captain. Toshio was his third seat. Going around that maybe she was related to Masaki in some way, because she does kind of look like her. Some people say maybe she's a reincarnation of her, maybe she's her sister or aunt or something. that now. And for a backstory, it's really in this arc at all. I swear, I feel like I'm getting a headache with this nonsense. I don't even know what's going on. This is longer than I thought it was gonna be. I was hoping it was gonna be maybe an hour long, but this is easily turning into like a 2 hour fest. But you know what? I don't care. This crap is gonna take as long as it needs to because a lot of crap to say. I don't even think I even have. So what did I talk about? I already talked about disappointing fights. No, I haven't talked about the fights yet themselves a little, but let me go a little more in detail with some of these disappointing fights. Let's look at the elite fights. You know, two of them were just awful. Oh yeah, I remember now what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Bankai, how they were disappointing. But this will actually go into that. Now I already talked Unaha. Shunsui and Kisuke's are even worse. Kisuke's Bankai makes no sense in contrast to Shikai. People are obviously trying to say, oh, but his Shikai is, you know, it's like constructing and reconstructing matter or some crap like that, or some Full Metal Alchemist type crap. But we don't know that for sure. We never really got an explanation of what his Zanbato actually did. Like it seemed like his Bankai, his Zanbato, like his depending on the translates like Blood Princess or the Red Princess. Personally, I go with the Red Princess because because he has abilities that he has moves. He has a moves that some moves in his Zanbato that aren't really blood based per se. That are more like lasers. So I think Red is more of a proper thing. So what happens with his Bankai? His Bankai is just him summoning a giant woman on some Steven Universe type stuff with a puppet, and it's basically like a puppet on the string type of thing. Now this, I don't have a problem with the design of it. I think it's quite the key getting bonk, it being his Bankai. I do have a problem with because if we're really talking about it, his Bankai really should be Shuchara's Bankai because her Shikai has to do with like strings and stitching and sewing and stuff like that. So it would make more sense that that would be her Bankai. Kisuke's Bankai would be more. I would say should be more like an acid blood thing or something like that, or maybe I don't know, or something else red themed. Not that. It's Shinsuke's Bankai, which I think is easily the most disappointing entire arc, mainly because of all the hype that was put into it. This one I had the most problems with out of all the Bankais. You can say his Bankai kind of makes sense, but I still have problems with it. Because how you go from first of all, how you go from a children's game to what the crap that was like? I don't know if it's supposed to be children's stories, adult stories, theater, Broadway, poetry, books, a story. I don't know. So that's my first problem with it. The second problem is that it, like I said, like with the other ones, it just feels random. The others, and also it feels rushed. So that's problem number three. Problem number four, the moves were so underwhelming and forgettable. Like there's four moves in his Bankai. The only one that really stood out to me was the third one, which is the underwater thing. That's it. The rest of them are just underwhelming. The last one was just stupid. Oh, it was just a slash. Really? That's lazy. Lazy. The first two, like the first one, it basically reflects the injuries back on their opponent if they feel like I don't know. And the second one is like it the disease pops up if they like I guess feel like the kind of like that whole like exchange of a swordsman type of thing. But I feel like the first two moves in his Bankai depended on whether or not a how much injuries I guess Shunsui receives in the battle, I guess, and B how his enemy interprets I guess getting injured or getting hurt. Like I feel that's the problem. I feel like the further battle itself goes through, which I don't feel like that's really that good of a Bankai to use. I feel like the best move for the Bankai would have been the third one. But then you can see that one could be survived too, even though it says that in the you stay underwater until one of the people runs out of Ryasu. Okay. See, this is what happens when you hype up stuff and you don't really follow through with it, or it doesn't live up to the hype. Because Shisui Bankai said that he can't. Ukitake was saying that his Bankai can't be used where other people can see it. Obviously, that's interpreted. That's open to interpretation because that can really mean anything, but still, that is a level of hype. And Kubo really needs to be careful with his wording. Like with like with Keith, he says my Bankai is a suited for training. How is it not suited for training? Seriously, how is it not? For what we see, his Bankai allows him to fix up whoever he wants to fix up, whoever he so chooses. So how is it not suited for training? I want an explanation for that. How is it not suited for training? And going back into Century's Shikai, there was Century was breaking down new moves in the Shikai, which implies that we haven't even seen the full capabilities of what his Shikai can do. And I feel like this is also a similar case with Kisuke as well. We never got to see the full capabilities of their Shikai system. And then they just jumped to Bankai. They jumped to it rather quickly without much build up. You say there was build up over the series, but not within the fight. Especially since in the first half of the series, pre time skip, they were so adamant. Oh, I can't use my Bankai right now. It's too dangerous. I can't do it. Can't let people see it. Now it's like Bankai. Everyone's just going Bankai like, and the problem is that it feels so forced because we know they're only doing it because it's the final arc. And then it doesn't even matter because some don't even use their Bankai anyway later on within this arc. So it just makes it feel worse. And plus, these Bankais are not fully fleshed out at all because they only use it for that one fight. It fails for the most part, and you don't ever see it again. And some of these fights, and some of these Bankais multiple reasons. Like I said, one because they need to explain the correlation between the Shikai and the Bankai, and two, just to explain what the Bankais actually do. I'll give Sunsui credit that at least his Bankai was actually explain what it does. It just doesn't make sense in correlation to the Shikai. And then, of course, I'm gonna say this too. Like with the Sushi versus Lily Barrel fight, I was not happy when Sushi fought Lily Barrel at all. I really wanted him to fight Hashwell, to be honest. I mean, later on, it became painfully clear that Kubo was saving him for Uryu. But to have Sushi confront Hashwell early on in the arc, it seemed like he was setting him up to have him fight him at least in a major fight. Because that previous fight they had was more of just a physical confrontation. It wasn't like a serious fight. But it does feel like you're setting that up, and then for it to never really come into fruition, it's just disappointing. Which is why I wasn't excited for that fight from the jump. And then when it's revealed that Lily Barrow is someone of importance, but he still sucks. He even fleshed out the character, and he had all these multiple transformations that just look stupider and dumber. I mean, yeah, I understand that it was the design for his Volt standing forms was supposed to be like like evolved angels or whatever, but still. Another thing, how do you go from a sharpshooter to becoming intangible? Because Lily Barrow's ability was he was the X-axis, which allowed him to shoot through things at a precise angle, at a precise basically the whole X marks the spot thing. So basically, he's a sharpshooter, allowing him to shoot through anything. So how do you go from that to becoming like this intangible light person, made out of light? That doesn't make any sense. And because he it really was stupid. I understand why Kubo kind of did that because he made him the quote unquote leader of the of the elites, the first Quincy to get his powers or some crap like that, which never really was explained because you have theories that well, I'm not even gonna get into that. Obviously, this could have been explained if Kubo told the that never happens. I mean, I guess because he was a leader of the elites, he had him become ridiculously OP for no reason. Despite the fact, again, it lacked consistency with his powers. The only cool trumpet thing, he destroyed like half the soul palace, at least one of the palaces. I thought that was cool, but beyond that, he sucked. And then you have the whole god. Oh yes, let's talk about the now. I have a lot of problems with this, but not the whole guy. That's obviously stupid. It was a plot device. It was a dance marking. It was an asshole. But that's the least of my problems. I think that's the least. That's the least of it. Well, all right. Look, I've mentioned this before, but the bigger problem I have with the whole story. You want to know why I have a problem with her backstory? Because it builds her up as one of actual importance. She's part of one of these noble families. It hasn't been confirmed whether or not she's one of the five families. People think so because she does have one of these, agents that can confront gods and, uh, you know, the Shiba family. They have the Shiba and places, whether it be into the Stereo or the Soul Palace. You have Yoruichi string thing that can like counter a god or some crap like that, which didn't really do anything, but we're not gonna get into that. So we assume that the Now's family, the Issei family, is one of the five noble families. We already know the Shibas, the Shihoas, and Kushis are three of them. The Issei family hasn't been confirmed yet, but they are a noble family nonetheless. It's just whether or not they're one of the main five. I would hope so, only because it would make the now having the God Slaying sword a little more legitimate, and B, it would add resolving the whole noble family plot point. But anyway, going back to our backstory. So it's revealed that first it revealed that Sunsui banged his adult Zanbakuto spirit to make his younger one. Don't ask me how that happened. He just did that. So like I don't know how that works, but whatever. Nothing makes sense at this point anyway. So just go with it. All right, and he did that so he can have the younger his younger Zanbakuto spirit hold Gosling sword for the now for when she's ready to use it. And when the now and here's the thing, Sunsui married no what Sunsui's brother married the now's mother, which would make the now his niece. And the thing with the Now's family is that Now's family a noble family of all females who don't have their own top that carry this God slaying sword from generation to generation, and again it's made to counter gods, and it splits them into 8 pieces or people, whatever. Here's the problem I have with this whole situation: the implications of this backstory. It's basically saying that the Now is a character of extreme importance. If that is the fact, then why was she so irrelevant throughout most of the series? I actually heard this from the YouTuber by the name of Mr. Tomo2304. I think that's what he called himself. He did like a vice captain poll, and I remember he mentioned, and now was it even shown in the Aranka saga in the manga? Like so apparently any of the scenes in the anime that she was shown like in the Aranka saga that was filler happening, but her being in there. Like when Sutra Latake were going to Aizen's files to find out what he was planning. Apparently, the now being that scene was filler, which would mean that between the Souls of Sayaka and this arc now has not been shown. How is she relevant? I mean, how could she? How couldn't she be relevant if she was this important? I have a huge problem with that. You can't have a character supposed to be of like this high magnitude be irrelevant for most of the series, and you can't tell me that Kubo did not forget her. You can tell he forgot her ass. And Kubo's admitted to forgetting characters. He admitted that he forget Chujiro Sakakiba, who was Yamamoto's former vice captain. Or Yamamoto's vice captain. And the funny thing, he's more relevant. Now it just seemed like a character who was designed in the Soul Society, completely forgotten about for like at least two more story arcs, and then was brought back in this arc just for that sole purpose. That's awful. To me, that's even worse than the Godslayer sword thing itself. That's even worse. It's terrible writing. It's bad writing. That's just bad writing. And I'm not even finished yet. That's we're not even finished with this yet. On top of that, Kubo uses this to hype Nanao's character up. And then in the very next chapter, he takes a dump on her. He takes a dump on her hard. He shows that she can't fight. That she literally can't fight. And people debate, and people try to defend this, saying, "Oh, but Nanao's not. She can fight. She's mainly a keto fighter. She can't fight close combat." Bullcrap. If she was so great at keto, as she's claimed to have been, and this is where that's her main fighting skill, why didn't she use that against Lily Barrow? And I've heard people say, "Oh, it's because the Quincy's can absorb it." We don't know if the Quincy's can absorb it. It was never stated that they could. It was never shown that they could. People brought up the whole Haswell thing. For all we know, he could be using his balance power, which I always assumed that's what the case was. And bringing up that fight is not good for anyone that wants to defend. Why? Because in that very same fight, Hasbro actually scolded Now. That's right, he scolded her about her being a noob because she made this new keto herself, which is the only thing I'll give the Now credit for, is that she's only one of very few characters who's been shown they create their own keto spells. But you want to know how much of a noob she is? She did not tell her fellow Storyper comrades, captains, vice captains, otherwise, how to use it, or even just tell them about it. Period. And when Haswell confronted her about that, she made the stupid police video and made like this, and he exposed her ass. And then he siphoned it, I guess, with his balance ability or whatever. So no, she can't fight. That was an implication right there. She couldn't fight. And it's funny, just in those few chapters, Kubo completely made her into a garbage character. Not even just garbage, irredeemable garbage. And she cannot be fixed. She is complete and utter trash. Complete and utter trash. Forever. And I'm not, and this and look, it still gets worse. Yeah, it gets much worse with that. You want to know why? Because with that whole situation, it makes the whole vice captain. It makes the whole vice captain seat make it look terrible because now you can have characters who basically have no combat ability of any kind become a vice captain. And this is a serious issue. It's not like it just being a regular seat officers. You have to remember there's 20 seat officers, with the captain and vice captain being the top two spots. A vice captain is important. Some people might not see it as it now because the vice captains aren't kind of relevant these days, but it is an important seat nonetheless. And it was shown in during the Iran saga when Isaac getting told is defected. We saw that Momo, Kira, and Izagi had to be the temporary leaders of their squads until a new captain was replaced. And that's the job of a vice captain. If something happens to their captain or they're not around, they become the substitute leaders of their squad until further notice. And let's say something was to happen to Susui. Would you really count on her to lead the squad? I know he has another vice captain who is Yamamoto's former third seat because Susui made both her and I think his name was Okakiba or something like that. He made both of them his vice captains, so he has two vice captains. But let's say if it was to fall on her hands, they'd be done. And what's worse is that she's no longer just a vice captain of Squad 8. She's one of the vice captains of Squad 1. And Squad 1, and when you're the captain of Squad 1, you are the head captain. So if something was to happen to him and even happen to Okakiba, it's just it falls on her to lead the squad and almost essentially lead Gold 13, they'd be they'd be in some deep. Really. It just makes the Ghost 13 in general look bad, but definitely makes the Vice Captain scene look bad because it's basically anybody can get there as long as they're like rich and famous. It's one of those like classic privilege type stories. Like, oh, they were privileged. They basically, um, you could say they cheated their way to the top. They bought their way to the top. Stuff like something like that. That's basically what Anal did because she definitely doesn't deserve it. And it's for all those reasons that I mentioned, as well as the whole Gosling sword thing in itself, is the reason why she is complete and other trash and she's just irredeemable. So yeah, so that's one of the issues with this arc as well. It's like it's yes, is that you have characters getting crapped on to degrees that they've never been crapped on before. Getting crapped on so bad that they become irredeemable characters. Look at Ichigo. Ichigo at this point is nearly irredeemable. In just a few of these chapters, Ichigo went from to overly cocky to depressed again in just what 2, 3 chapters. Yeah, like 3, 4 chapters. He went right back to that. That's ridiculous. That's terrible writing, and that's terrible character development. Come on. What's worse with Ichigo in particular is the fact that you had the Royal Guard saying praise to Ichigo about how mature he became and how he wouldn't overreact to things. I knew that was bullcrap from the jump because I've been following the series for a while now. Letting know the deal with Ichigo. This is why I've been saying I don't like Ichigo as a character. I don't support him. I think he's a bad character. Well, actually, before I was saying he was like mediocre. I mean, he was bad, but now I say he's a protagonist out there, which is bad. Like when you have someone like Luffy being a better protagonist, then you know you messed up. So yes, I do think Luffy is a better written protagonist, shonen protagonist than Ichigo at this point. Now, Ichigo's supposed to be one of the smart ones, quote unquote, but his intelligence has been very questionable, especially in this arc. So yeah, I would say his big test to see if he truly grown as a character was going to be his confrontation with Uryu. Sure enough, as soon as he saw Uryu, he went right back to his old ways. Chad had to snap him out of it like usual. Well, Chad doesn't usually snap him out of it, but you know what I mean. From his group, or otherwise, usually has to snap him out of his funk and has to bring him back up. And I tried to explain this to Brady in a previous live stream about my problem with it. And I think the reason why he my problem with it is because I worded it wrong. Interesting enough, I kind of forgot how I was going to word it. But basically, what my problem with Ichigo as a whole, especially in these past few chapters, is that Ichigo, he's never really been able to get out of his funk by himself. I mean, it's fine to have people help you, but he's never been able to really stand on his own 2 feet, kind of like Rufia. Even worse. Alright, this is how I say it. He's always been bailed out of situations, including being bailed out of his own depression. He never truly of his own will, which would be good for him because that would be actual character development for him to actually get over these issues. But no, he just gets bailed out through some type of plot device or power up or something. Some secret trick, basically a plot device. He gets out of his depression, which is why he constantly has it. But the rate it's been going is just ridiculous. Now, of course, part of the problem is because Yu Haibaka so can't do anything, and because of the series being run, so it makes this problem much worse. So just goes from depressed to cocky and whatever, or just ready to go. Chapter 680, 681, we can't do this. 681, Shima fixes it. He goes like, all right, we do it, we're ready, let's go. We're like, where's this bitch ass at? Let's do it. Yeah. Like, it's like I'm gonna be honest. When that first happened, even now I still think it's hilarious. And I don't even get mad about it anymore because it's just comical at this point. And I actually feel like Kubo's doing this for the sake of trolling. And another thing too, I have to ask: does Kubo even still like Ichigo as a character? Because he trolled him a lot in this arc, despite the fact he didn't get a lot. He actually did do in this arc has been more detrimental to the Soul Society than anything else. I mean, he got bodied off screen by Askin. Like hardcore. He got like the Chad level bodied. He was eating the ground. He helped Drew Harbach take out the Soul King. He finished him off. He got trolled by Bach like horribly. He got told he was. I was gonna say he got told no juices, but yeah, he got talked into a depression. He got his Bankai broken multiple times. It's comical at this point. Kubo just trolled him, so I do question if Kubo even likes him anymore. And going into the whole intelligence issue, Uryu. Am I the one that's questioning Uryu's intelligence in this arc? Like the way he went about things in this arc, especially when it comes to the whole Hashwell fight, was just terrible. Like a lot of things he was doing didn't make any sense. Like for example, Uryu was fighting Hashwell to buy Ichigo some time, Ichigo and his group some time to make it back into the world of living because there was an invasion happening there. But we never really get to that invasion because Hashwell or Bach or somebody destroyed the portal. They just go after Bach directly, basically making that entire fight pointless. Also, he was trying to, he was also trying to buy time for Ichigo and them to get to Bach before he woke up, but he wakes up. So it kind of makes you question what's the point of this fight again, and considering how how that fight went, it was just like Now, yes, I think most of the fights in this arc have just been awful. Like I said, a lot of them are. First off, I feel like there's been a lot of mismatches. Like Sunsui versus Lily Brown. I don't think Sunsui should have fought Lily Brown. I think either Shinji, Hachi, or the Sorry about that. I should have fought him. Think about it, Lily Brown's a sharpshooter. Orihime has a rejection ability. That would have been a cool fight. We don't get that. Oh yeah, I forgot about the Royal Guard getting off screen, but again, I didn't really care too much about that. I am disappointed we're not going to see most of that Broncos now. Because Ichime is the only one who we have to see the full capabilities of. Oh yeah, Halle Bell didn't get to do anything because she was just locked in her sex dungeon in Wakamundo for the rest of the series. She was literally used as a plot device. Out of all the Broncos, I was disappointed. She was easily the most disappointing because Kubo went out of her way to bring her back into the story. Because remember when Isaac slashed her, she was supposed to be dead. But then like in one of the side stories or something that was like in the data books or something like that, where he made Koza heals her and her Froxio and breaks them, essentially bring them back to life. So that's Kubo going out of his way because he does this in the side story, not even in the main manga, and having or he may handle of all things as well. So to have him go out of his way to bring these characters back and then not do anything with them, especially Halle Bello, who's supposed to be the current Queen of Wakamundo, the only Vassal of the Spada left. Because if you remember, the top four Spada, Stark, Barrigan, Halle Bello, Ukiura, they were all Vassal of the Spada, hence why they're top four Spada. That's the top four Spada who was said that they couldn't release in their they couldn't go in their resurrection forms in Los Noches. They had to be outside of it, which is why Kubo brought Eisenboy, three of them to fake our curve down. Yeah, so she's the only one of the Vassal Lords. So she's the only Vassal Lord Spada left standing. And it's the current Queen of Wakamundo. She is taken out off screen by some unknown curator, which I'm hoping was Bach himself, because if she got taken out by Kyrie, that's just terrible. Especially since, Vassal Lords are supposed to be stronger than captains. You remember that? Ooh, it's hot up in here. So, Captain. So she's just left there, and she's basically just using a plot device to have Ichigo and company get to Wakamundo. and then she's just left there for the rest of the series. She was only in this arc for like 1 or 2 chapters, and that was it. And it was only for like a few panels. It's funny because she was left hung up on some like berserk type stuff, but yeah, nothing with her. I don't, we'll probably see her again in the last chapter. To give her some type of like half-ass resolution, but that's still not satisfying at all because she didn't do anything. She literally did nothing. Just like Ryuki, he hardly did anything, but at least he. And the sad thing with Ishin and Ryukin is that they didn't get a lot of chances to really shine in the series in general, especially Ryukin. Like Ryukin, he hasn't had a lot of fights in his arc. Uh, yeah. No, he only had like two major. He only had two fights. He had that first fight where he fought the those two pseudo Ironclads at the beginning of the Ironclad saga, where he two shot them, and then he had the training session with Uyu when he helped Uyu get his powers back. That's it. That's the only fight he's been in. We never got to see him go ham against anybody. Same case with Ishin. The only major fights he's been in was against Grant Fisher and Eisen. The Fudge. And you would think they would be a major focus considering they're the fathers of two of the main characters, especially two of the main characters who have a big focus in this arc. What the fudge? Remember when people were speculating that they might have been war potentials? Well, I still think they should have been, but whatever. And speaking of war potential, I think Binary was the MVP of this arc. Even though he's not a war potential, I think he's done the most out of anybody in this entire arc. He has been on his game. So bravo to Binary. He has been on point. He's actually become one of my favorite characters in the series because of the stuff he's been doing in his arc. He actually did more than Key. I was saving the war potential stuff for last, or at least close to last. I think it's about time I talked about this now. What the fuck happened with that? Alright, so there's supposed to be 5 war potentials. These war potentials are supposed to like change the landscape of the battlefield. It's supposed to I guess you could say like in terms of Hasbro's powers, like tip the scales I guess to the story side's favor or whatever. As far as we know, the war potentials were supposed to be someone who can either become a major threat or ally to Bach. And the characters who were war potentials actually made sense, and that's one thing I was really looking for. I was really excited for because there was real one. Then you had Kenpachi, you had Aizen, Ichibei, and then Kisuke. And each of them were war potentials for different meanings. Ichigo because of his latent powers and potential, Kenpachi for his fighting strength, Aizen for his massive pool of Ryasu, his abyss of Ryasu that we still haven't seen the full capabilities of, and we haven't seen his Bankai either. Ichibei for his wisdom, and Kisuke for his unknown means. So tell me why most of this doesn't even. I mean, sure, these characters. I mean, a few of them got to fight, I guess, but a lot of them did nothing. Again, Aizen, he was locked up for the soul side most of the time. Ichibei only had like one major fight that was against Bach, and he lost. But then he basically does nothing after that. Cheesecake barely got to me. Yeah, he helped the Soul Society, the captains who got that Bankai stolen get that Bankai's back, and he fought Askin and defeated him with the assistance of Grimshaw and Alpha. And Luigi. And what else? Ichigo, he's had a few fights, but he's only like because these people complain Ichigo hasn't been in a lot of fights. He's been in fights. He just hasn't won many. In fact, he's only won like one fight, which was when he won shot Shaz Domino. He fought Kyurei, but he didn't really beat him. It was more of Grinjao and Kisuke that kind of did that, so I guess Kisuke did more, I suppose. That was a team fight between like Ichigo, Ichigo's group, Kisuke, Halle Belt, Froxion, and Grimjao showing up at the end. And of course, Aizen, he mind raped Bach with his Cupid's Gesto. And that's all they've done. And Kapaki's fought a few people too. But he's only won like one fight, which was against Grammy, which was his first initial, I'm gonna usually with those fights, you should win those fights because you just came from a training session. So usually those fights are just to show how strong you become and what you can do now. That's basically what that fight was. Every other preceding fight he's had after that, he's just been losing. He lost to the Fem Raiders. He lost to Pernita. Actually, his loss to Pernita was so bad that he needed Mayuri. Mayuri had to take him out to fight because he was acting like a moron. And then he had his fight with who else? Oh yeah, with the Miracle where he teamed up with Toshiro and Byakuya to do their Bankai combo, which I think should have been the end of the Miracle after that. When the three of them did that Bankai combo, this should have been it. He shouldn't have came back after that, especially since it didn't even amount to anything. That was stupid. Wow. What else? What else is there I need to talk about? So yeah, the war potentials they were just kind of useless. They were pointless. They didn't really do much. And it's funny because I actually debated this with one that with a reviewer podcast group about the war potentials not being underwhelming. But now, just now consider how things have played out. Yeah, they're definitely underwhelming because despite them being hyped up to be to be the game changers of this war, they didn't do anything. And what's worse about it is that them actually being game changers of the war actually makes sense. So I think it's a huge missed opportunity that Kubo didn't do as much with them as he should have, especially since those guys in particular were kind of built up to be abnormal soul reapers. So yeah, wasted up opportunity. And going to Kapachi in particular, what the fuck happened with Kapachi? Am I the only one that's noticed that he's been evolved as a character? Like he's become so awful. Not just in terms of combat ability, because his combat ability is gone. It's almost non-existent, but his intelligence has dropped as well. You could say he's never been like the sharpest tool that's in the shed, but at least he can. At least he was able to. It seemed like he came and hold a proper conversation, or even speak anything that doesn't have to do with fighting and killing. That's all in his mind now. Like I remember there's one point I think he was asking Remy that what the cookie was, although that might have been I hope they didn't know what a cookie was. That's just awful. But still, he has devolved into a Neanderthal. He's basically become a caveman. And I'm not just talking about when he goes into bunker. I'm just in general, he's become like a caveman. It just seems like the more he unlocks his true potential, the dumber he became. Which is why I kind of agree with a lot of people that he shouldn't have unlocked his true Naruto powers. Because he's basically become the big problem that this arc has been having, especially also with the Stern Raiders, which is the whole they get OP powers and they just spam it with no fighting skills whatsoever. Which brings me to the fights in this arc, and I've already been talking about them. But just overall, just to explain why a lot of these fights don't work or why they weren't good. First off, you have too many mismatches. Because here's the thing, you should have opponent. First off, you need to build up the fights first and foremost. And some of these fights were not built up properly. That's the first thing. The second thing is that these fights, the characters that they go up against need to be compatible with the weight with their fighting style and abilities. That's the second thing. The third thing, fighting, not just spamming of abilities, not just spam, like spam OP abilities. That's not how you do a fight. And the funny thing is, I remember people saying that Bleach was the best of the big three when it came to fights. But now these fights are so terrible because there's no real fighting involved. Because there's no skill, there's no strategy. It's just spam, OP powers. That's no, and that gets boring very quickly because that's not a proper fight. And I remember the guys I was talking about, they was talking about how they have the fights that basically become like a Yu-Gi-Oh duel, where it's just like they go for an attack, they pause, and then the next person goes for the attack. That's the least of the problems. You'd be happy if a fight actually goes like that. It's really more just them spamming abilities and the fights becoming completely one-sided, where one side completely dominated the fight, and then the person they just beat up powers up, and then they becomes one side on the other side, and then they can completely destroy that person. And it just basically just keep going like that until the person and then they defeat them. Which they actually criticize this too, which is the fact that because of the way those fights play out, is that it basically goes like this: none of the fight, only the last hit actually matters in the fight. That's basically how these fights go with the way Kubo's been doing the fights with the whole spam powers and power up thing. That only the last hit matters, and then everything before that is just completely pointless. It's just wasting time. This is why a lot of people can't get invested in a lot of these fights because of that. And then you also have the fact that all the hyped up characters and just characters with a lot of potential and fan favorites that people really like are constantly getting crapped on. It makes people less excited because there's nothing to really get hyped about. How can you get hyped for a fight when not only do you know the outcome of the fight, but you also know that it's not going to be a good outcome? And people also been complaining about the fights being predictable. I think that's the least of the problems. You can still have a good fight and it can be predictable, or you can have a good fight and the outcome has already been decided. If you really think about it, most series and showing the fights already predetermined who's gonna win. But the difference is the execution. That is one of the biggest things when it comes to doing these stuff right. It's the execution. If you don't execute it well, it will fall apart. And Kubo's been executing stuff poorly because again, he's been making just the structure of the fights themselves. There's no real fighting skills. There's no proper back and forth between the characters. And because of how OP these abilities are, it also makes it difficult for them to have a satisfying conclusion to a fight because of how broken some of these abilities are, and it usually is gonna and because they keep getting more and more OP, it's usually gonna lead to more BS power ups or just some either some death marking or some just or crap like what Box did, which is also a death marking, but probably the worst kind of way where it doesn't even have a proper conclusion. So you also have to be careful about how powerful you make your characters, and granted, this has been a problem since like your Fake Conqueror Town. Well, this has actually been a problem since Wake of Moon, though, but the power level issue, but it's gotten really bad since this arc started, especially since the second invasion started. So you have all of those problems. You have like I said, you have the fact that the pacing is too slow, and you have things taking way too long to get to the point. You have a lot, and because of that, now things are getting rushed, and essentially the series is, at least the way I see it, is getting canceled, which means a lot of stuff is going to be unaddressed. You're going to have a lot of backstories that's going to be left unknown. A lot of Zamato abilities, like Speak Out of the Bonk, is going to be left unknown. We're never going to find out about any other Kido spells, no more Hakuda and Danjutsu moves, no Shimpo moves, no what else is there? No other power ups or anything like that. No what else is there? I already said the backstories. Oh yeah, just characters being developed. There's a lot of underdeveloped characters. Heck, look at the main cast. Most of them are underdeveloped. In fact, the only one that actually has decent development at this point is Uyu, and I guess Renji, if you count him as a main character. They're the only ones that actually have decent character development under them. Really, they're the only ones. The rest don't have good character development. But Rukia, she had okay character development, but hers could be a lot better. Orihime's character development is just garbage. She had backwards development, much like Ichigo. His development is just awful. Chad Chad just hasn't had enough development because he just doesn't get enough screen time. Period. He doesn't get enough time to do anything. Also, I should mention this too. That's another thing that happened in this art that really pissed me off, and this is with Yoruichi. The electric cat form thing. I already complained about we're never gonna see Yoruichi's toe or her cat or how her cat form thing works. But one thing we did get was her like electric cat form wear cat thing. I did not like it at all. I thought that was completely disrespectful to our character because it made her like submissive and almost like a pet to Kisuke. I felt dirty when I read it. It felt very sexist in a sense. Not really complain about that much. As I haven't even defended Kubo when it comes to the sexist complaints. I've heard people complain about that. Well, they complain about it with all the Big Three and a lot of shows in general. They've complained about the the female completion not being treated right. but not defend. That was just awful what he did to her, and especially since she's supposed to be like the best female in the series. And see her getting treated like that. And then, of course, she doesn't even win her fight, which is another thing. I'm surprised a lot of people don't complain about the fact that she's only won one major fight in this entire series, and that was against Soy Foam. That's right, garbage ass Soy Foam. Yes, the weakest and worst captain in Soul Society, Soy Foam. That's the only person she beat. And of course, a lot of characters never lived up to their full potential. They never really, completed the character arcs. Again, there's a lot of plot points that's never going to be addressed. You have a lot of worlds that's never going to be gotten into, like Hell, Valley of the Screens, the Animal Beast realm, which was brought up in this arc. The Quincy Ice Palace / Shadow realm, which was also brought up in this arc. The Gargantua, that realm in between, like that's supposed to take you to the Wake of Mundo, is in between the end of World Living and Soul Society. You have the Dog Eye Precipice World. We're never gonna find out anything about that. At least nothing more than we already know. You also have like again the backstory of the characters. The Soul King, how Yamamoto defeated Yuha back in the day, which you would think would be important to learn, but I guess not. The original Gote 13, the original Stern, how both organizations formed, the first Quincy War, the weird looking people in Squad 12. I think that should get some type of explanation because you have this zombie looking dude who looks like like some type of key guy prototype that's in Squad 12. You got that big green guy. You got Akin who has like horns on his head. We're never gonna get explanation for any of them. They just look weird just because. What about the giants in the Soul Society? They're just giants. What about the four gatekeepers? Are we never gonna see them ever again? Whatever happened to the Windside guy from Squad 7 that Uyu and what he made for the main Uyu and Soul Society are? Did he lose his soul reapers powers forever? Did he ever get them back? What happened to Maki Maki? You know that one. I think he was like the 19 of Squad 11. He was that drunk guy that saved order he made from Mayuri. So I guess we're never gonna see him again. What happened to those two soul reapers from the beginning of this arc? What the fuck happened to them? What happened to that Quincy Aranca hybrid things that were coming up? Like Ivan and Ludus Regas. Are we never gonna get an explanation for that? Especially since it was stated that Quincy's are apparently poisoned. Hollows are apparently poisoned Quincy's. And that's another thing. If that's the case, how does a crafted Kyurge become more powerful by absorbing iron, a hollow Aranca monster? He got more powerful than that, from absorbing that. But I'm just gonna assume that that was Kubo coming out with that later on because that happened before that that whole thing got established. I'm not gonna go too much into Uyu and Ryukin being not really being affected by it because Ryukin hasn't really had that much screen time. And Uyu, he's obviously a special case. So I'm just gonna assume he's just immune to it. That just saves that whole situation. What happened to Gotenpine? The pre-launch spot at Fort Chad. He's supposed to be alive, and he hasn't shown up in this arc at all. We're never gonna find out how Ukiyo in general. He was a wasted character. We're never gonna find out about the noble families. We're never gonna find out any more about the assassination squad or the Keto Corps or Central 46. Shady Central 46. We're never gonna find out more about them. The Fudge. There's another thing too. Mayuri. It was also mentioned that Mayuri was playing on that Mayuri was playing something in during remember the fight with Byakuya it was Byakuya and Kabani versus Yami, and Mayuri was making like side comments. He was talking to Byakuya, and he was saying like, oh hello, and he was saying like, I'm going to stop you. He said, oh I'm going to stop you, and we've never really got any follow up with what he was going to stop. We never found out what Mayuri was going to plan. And that's another thing too. I would really love to see Mayuri be more, be more of a focus as well. I mean, he has done a lot in his art, but I would like to see him have more interactions with the Quincy's in this arc, considering he had a part in the massacre. At least he experimented on the Quincy's, and they know of him. So it would have been nice to have seen that. I remember asking was trying to lead him into the darkness or something, so it seemed like so it seemed like he was actually it seemed like that was gonna go somewhere, but that was dropped. So yeah, there's just those are just some of the issues I say why this arc is the worst arc of Bleach. But I guess this just to sum things up: bad fights, poor conclusions to character arcs, poor conclusions to plot points, a bad ending because like no matter what happens in the next chapter, it's still gonna be a bad ending. Poor conclusion to Drew Harbach's defeat, poor conclusion to most of the Sternritter defeats, bad final fights, um, crappy on hyped up characters, horrible pacing, and also just making this arc feel like it was and resolved, and basically making this arc seem kind of pointless in a sense because it should have ended after Aizen's defeat, and I have to because I was actually one of the people saying that the series should have continued on because of all the unresolved plot points and stuff. But considering hardly any of it was actually answered or resolved, it does seem like it was pointless just to continue the series after the Aizen fight. And what makes it even worse is that even after get answers to, we still have more questions about because more and more crap just comes up and kind of contradicts things. So yeah, that's just all the issue. That's the issues I have, and just overall, I just think that writing in general is very inferior to all the previous arcs in the series. You can say what you will about the Full Arc or the Rocket Saga, but they have better writing than this, and I do feel like they at least have better conclusions as well and better climaxes. This is just awful. Again, terrible. You had an overall main villain group, bad fights. Majority of fights were below average quality. Anticlimactic, and anticlimaxes, unreliable hyped up characters, underwhelming reveals, more questions than answers, unresolved plot points, unresolved characters, more plot holes, more BS power ups than there's ever been, and just a series overall ending in a whimper. I feel like we got less out of it than we should have gotten. And there's a bunch of missed opportunities as well. I also feel like Aizen. I feel like this should have been. I feel like this war should have been like a war between not just the Quincy's and the Soul Society, but Aizen's Aranka army as well. Like Aizen gathers whatever's left of his remaining Aranka army and challenges Bach and the Soul Society. That we can have like a 3-year war. Or you can expand it even more and get some of the other realms that haven't been explored yet involved, and you can have like a multi war. You could have got Genjo and his Fulbright boys involved. You could have divided team up with Kisuke and have him have his own little army. You could have Mayuri form his army like in Hell or something. You could have gotten a lot of that stuff involved in, but no, nothing. So yeah, and plot points that go nowhere, and just stuff that goes nowhere in general. Ugh. I could go on, but I think I'm going long enough, and I'm kind of running out of stuff to say. So I think I'm probably going to end it here. Shout out to thank you Ray and Eric for commenting and watching. If there's any stuff I forgot, you guys can mention it in the comment section. Ugh, my brain is starting to hurt. I've been playing that for a while now. I'll do a follow up if I need to. I'm probably going to do a follow up after the last chapter is completed. But yes, this arc overall is just a huge disappointment. It has way too much bad writing in it. Retcons, plot plot holes, BS power up, dance machinas all over the place. Again, anticlimax, this underwhelming stuff, crapping on hype characters and all that jazz. Poorly put together fights, terrible pacing, and unresolved plot points and stuff. One thing I want to address before I go is actually I really can't address this because I haven't seen the video yet. But apparently Ray was saying that he said he's mad at the fact that James Hansen was a basic Hansen for a job, that his how biased he is with this mediocre series. Now for the record, I enjoy Bleach. I really do like the series. It is not as good as it once was. It's definitely gone downhill over the years, and this arc is easily like the worst of it. And that's the other problem. And that's the other reason why I think this arc is the worst arc of Bleach. It just has the worst scene in the series, the worst. And for the reasons that I mentioned beforehand, I already gave you examples. Some of the stuff that I've summed up overall as was bad. So yeah, again, if there's anything I forgot, just mention in the comment section. I'll make a video, a live stream or something when the series finally ends. My thoughts on that. Previous up with the series I have as a whole. And most of all, the series is just gonna be ending in a whimper. It's very disappointing for someone who's been a fan of the series for a while now, and it's disappointing for all the fans out there to see the series end like this. Yes, I know Kubo had gotten watched the series essentially getting canceled, but we can't. But this is one thing I do have to say though: we cannot put all the blame on Shonen Jump for some of this as well, because he did have some stupid moments. He trolled too much. He had some bad writing, and just and for the record, I think Kubo is a solid writer. I don't think he's a great writer, but I think he's a solid writer. He can write a solid story for the most part. But for what I'm seeing, he has to be motivated. And the thing what I'm seeing with him too is like he's on his game. But when he's not, you get these disasters. And I'll say like this: if you want to read anything else Kubo's written, read Zombie Pirate. I think it's a better series personally, even though it's only 4 volumes slash. I feel like Kubo kind of did things in that series that he should have done in this series. I'll probably talk about it more later, but anyway, rate, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys later. I'm tired. Have a good night.